The dry, dusty winds were kicking up something fierce that night, howling like a lost spirit through the narrow alleyways. Under a deep, star-dusted blue sky, a young woman, really just a girl herself, had to make a choice that would send ripples through 3 lives forever. She was holding 2 identical baby boys, her sons, wrapped up in the only clean cloth she had. Her heart felt like a cold, heavy stone in her chest. She was that poor, the kind of poor where your stomach aches all day and your future is a blank wall. The man who'd offered her a place to stay, a roof, a meal, gave her a terrible, heart-splitting choice. Him or the babies, what could she do? She was starving, and the thought of her baby's cries, weakening from hunger, was a nightmare she couldn't face. With tears carving clean tracks through the dust on her face, she knelt, kissed both their little foreheads, her lips trembling, and left them on the cool stone steps of the parish house. She knocked once, a sharp, loud rap that seemed to echo forever in the quiet night, and then just disappeared back into the shadows, a piece of her soul left behind on those cold steps. Inside, Father Michael, a man whose kindness was as much a landmark in the community as the ancient baobab tree, woke up. His face was a map of laugh lines, and his faith was as simple and strong as the earth itself. When he found the babies huddled together for warmth, his heart, which he thought had seen all the world's sorrows, just broke and grew bigger all at once. He named the louder one Jabari, which means the brave one, for his demanding cry, and the quieter one Kofi, for the day he was born. He raised them like they were his own. And his once quiet, sparse house was suddenly filled with the happy, messy chaos of 2 little boys learning to walk, talk, and tumble. By the time they hit 10, you could already see how different they were, like 2 sides of the same coin. Kofi stuck to Father Michael like glue. He was a quiet, observant kid who seemed to have an old soul. He loved helping out, polishing the heavy wooden pews until they shone, and his clear voice soared in the Sunday choir. He saw how the church was more than just a building. It was a safe harbor for people in a sometimes stormy world, a place for comfort and celebration. He knew with a certainty that was rare in a boy so young, that's what he wanted to do with his life. He was going to be a priest. Jabari, though, he was a whole different story. He was a ball of restless energy, a firecracker who couldn't stand being cooped up. He loved Father Michael, fiercely and protectively, but all the rules and prayers felt like a cage he was desperate to escape. The noisy, vibrant streets and the rough and tumble market, with all their chaotic sights and sounds, were way more his style. He started hanging out with older, tougher kids who taught him how to hustle, how to read people, and how to live by his wits. That life felt real and exciting in a way the quiet reverence of the church never could. Things finally boiled over when they were 16. It wasn't their first fight, but it was their last, the one that broke everything. Jabari came home super late, smelling of cheap potent palm wine, his swagger failing to hide the defiance in his eyes. Father Michael was so disappointed, and you could feel it in the air, thick and heavy with unspoken words. The argument started small, about rules and respect, but it quickly spiraled. They both said some sharp, cruel things they probably didn't mean, words born from years of simmering misunderstanding. In a fit of wounded pride and anger, Jabari packed a small worn bag and just stormed out, leaving Father Michael heartbroken and Kofi standing scared and confused in the silence. Jabari found a new family with a local gang, trading the steady, unconditional love of home for the dangerous, conditional loyalty of the streets. They started with petty theft and escalated to causing real trouble. And every whispered complaint in the market was like another stab in Father Michael's heart. 2 years later, when they were 18, things went from bad to worse. It was during a Sunday service. The church was full, the air thick with incense and the sound of hymns. All of a sudden, the heavy wooden doors burst open and in stormed Jabari's gang, their faces hard and their eyes hungry. People started screaming, a wave of panic replacing the peaceful prayer. The gang ran through the pews, grabbing bags and wallets. Father Michael, his love for his flock overriding any fear, stepped in to calm things down, his voice pleading. But one of the gang members, high on adrenaline and startled by the priest's bravery, got spooked and stabbed him. The whole church went silent, a collective gasp sucking the air from the room. As Father Michael crumpled, a look of profound shock and sorrow on his face, Kofi rushed to his side, his white altar boy robes instantly stained with crimson. He looked up and his tear-filled eyes met his brother's across the terrified room. For a split second, he saw a flash of horror on Jabari's face before it was replaced by a hard, unreadable mask. "Get out!" Kofi yelled, his voice booming with a righteous fury no one had ever heard from him before. "And never come back. If you do, God himself will punish you." The gang took off, melting back into the streets. They celebrated later that night, the stolen money buying them drink and a fleeting sense of power. But for Jabari, it felt all wrong. The image of Father Michael falling, the sight of the blood spreading across his own brother's hands, was burned into his brain. He knew he'd crossed a major line. This wasn't just petty theft anymore. This was something dark and ugly, a stain that wouldn't wash out. 7 long, hard years went by. Kofi, now 25, became a priest, just like he'd always wanted. He was kind and empathetic, his sermon speaking over forgiveness he struggled with in his own heart. Father Michael, who now walked with a permanent painful limp, cried with pride at his ordination. He never gave up hope, praying every single night that Jabari would one day find his way home. One of Kofi's duties was to visit the local hospital. One hot afternoon, the head nurse, a stern but kind woman, looked at him funny. "You know, Father," she said, "a man came in yesterday from the streets. He looks just like you, but older and really thin. Life's been rough on him." Kofi's heart started pounding, a wild mix of dread and hope washing over him. He got the room number and walked down the long, sterile hallway, his footsteps echoing the frantic beat of his heart. He pushed open the door, and there he was. It was Jabari. The streets had worn him down to almost nothing. He looked 10 years older than he was, his face gaunt, and a terrible hacking cough shook his whole frail body. Jabari's eyes, clouded with fever, fluttered open. At first, he just sneered at the priest's collar, but then his gaze focused, and a wave of disbelief and shame washed over him. "Kofi," he whispered, his voice raspy and weak, a ghost of what it once was. Tears just started streaming down Kofi's face as he rushed forward and grabbed his brother's cold, thin hand. Jabari. The name was a prayer and a sob all in one. "How did you find me?" Jabari asked, his own eyes filling with the tears of a man who thought he was long past crying. "Grace," Kofi said, his voice choked with 7 years of pent-up emotion. "It was God's will." They talked for hours as the sun set, painting the small, bleak room in shades of orange and purple. Jabari let it all out, the guilt that was a constant, heavy cloak, the crushing loneliness, the hollowness, of a life where his so-called friends hadn't even bothered to visit. "I don't deserve this coffee," he cried, his body shaking with racking sobs of regret. "After everything I did, to you, to Father Michael, I threw it all away. I made my bed and now I have to lie in it. Is there any chance for someone like me? Can a man who has walked so far into the darkness ever find his way back?" Kofi just held his hand tighter, his grip a firm, silent promise of support. "There's always another chance, brother. Always. Forgiveness isn't about who deserves it. It's a gift. It's the bridge that leads you back to the light, and it's been waiting for you all this time." A few days later, an unexpected and joyous reunion happened. The air, once thick with despair, was now filled with a quiet, miraculous joy. The small hospital, for all its faults, had a relatively well-tended garden, a perfect setting for this beautiful moment. Father Michael sat on the garden chair between his two sons, his hand resting on Jabari's arm. Kofi sat serenely, his presence a calm, steady comfort, and Jabari, having finally asked for and received a tearful, absolute forgiveness from the two people he had hurt the most, was smiling. It was a real, genuine smile, the kind that reached his eyes, a smile that had been absent for nearly a decade. All the years of anger, pain, and separation just melted away under the gentle warmth of the sun. Their family, once broken, was finally blessedly whole again.